Hello everybody and welcome back to Sunday Nights on the My Generation podcast. I'm your host Max. Thank you very much for tuning in. We've got obviously a brand new bi-weekly show for the My Generation podcast, and every Sunday evening I'll be doing a slightly shorter episode. It's just me and you talking. I'll probably go over a story of mine from real life, maybe some thoughts I want to share, maybe a review for a film. It's just a bit of a laid-back episode, just a shorter one, so you have different types of podcast content to listen to. I'm a little bit ill at the moment, if you couldn't tell from the audio, so thank you all for bearing with me today. But do let me know what you think of these new style of episodes in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think. So today, we are talking about playwriting. It's a big passion of mine. I've spoken about it on the show before. If you flash all the way back to the 4th episode of the My Generation podcast, I spoke with Cleo about the writing process. We had a really great chat about that. I got to talk a bit about my theatre, spoke to her about hers. It was just a really, really great conversation about a subject we're both super passionate about. And today I just wanted to go over some of my writing journey, how I got into this sort of process. Just maybe so if you wanted to get involved in theatre writing in the local area of Kent, but also no matter where you're listening from, hopefully some of my journey will apply, because I've done some work within the playwriting medium and neighbouring mediums as well. So by the time you're listening to it, also the audio drama which we wrote, I wrote and directed, it's called Once Said. It will be on the My Generation podcast page. So if you want some first-hand experience of my writing style, you can go straight to that audio drama and have a listen on the My Generation podcast. It was such a blast to put that thing together. Great group of people, such a supportive team, and my first sort of major passion project that I've taken from beginning to end, that I'm just so happy with the result. The reason I mentioned radio drama is because I actually think a lot of my theatre influences are still very clear and there within the audio piece, because there's a lot of monologues as well, so it's something that could actually quite easily translate to stage. So if anyone listening along wants to translate my work to stage, do get in touch with the Facebook page at the My Generation podcast if you are a theatre company, because I'm always looking to get involved in more playwriting stuff, and that would actually be quite interesting. But going back to sort of my journey through playwriting, so I have an interesting sort of route into playwriting, because growing up I wasn't really too interested in it. I was massively interested in novel writing. That was something that was really strongly resonating with me growing up, and that's I mainly think just because when I wanted to be a sort of a writer and a storyteller, but all my other friends, they had other dreams, other aspirations. A lot of them were into sport and into cars and mechanics, which was just so cool. So many of my friends from like primary and secondary school have gone on to sort of do what was within their passion, but I didn't know anyone growing up really until I started getting to sort of college and university age who were interested in film. So I had to sort of go on my own path, really, with the creation of stories that I wanted to make, because I'm primarily a filmmaker. And so I started off with novel writing. Just at home, I would write loads and loads of stories. I wrote one story as a kid, which it's massive. It probably won't ever see the light of day, but it is a big story, and for the age I wrote it at and the intricacy for my age, I'm incredibly proud of it. I was clearly very passionate about it, and my influences have changed throughout the years, but I've still got that story because I just had to keep that piece of history for me. But the reason I went into playwriting is I wanted to start getting my words moving. I wanted to get something on the stage. I wanted to make it live, make it a film, make it... I didn't know what I wanted, so I tried loads of different things. I tried a novel writing club in Whitstable, but the playwriting side of things, I went to the Marlowe Playwrights in Canterbury. That's where my love for playwriting began. I was a part of the club for about 3.5 years, which was just absolutely incredible. Made some great friends there. My style evolved there, and my Once Said audio drama would not be what it is today if it wasn't for Paul Skinner, who ran the group and continues to because of his influence on my writing style. Because the format of our writing group is 2 or 3 of the writers each week would have their piece read out by the group, and then we would feed back, and we'd do some exercises sometime as well. It would just be a really, really great evening. And every week then you could bring back pieces and watch them evolve. And I wrote a couple of full-length plays, some of which got performed, which was incredible. Just to actually, get my work out there, people actually seeing the things I'm making, incredible. But the first one actually, opportunity came right at the start of my playwriting. This is a really fun story. So when I first signed up to the Marlow Theatre Group, I was sort of a bit nervous about it because I didn't know anyone who was going. I was the youngest there by a little bit as well. I'd like just turned 18, and they said, so there's this 10-minute showcase thing where like they get 4 actors in, and it might be different for future years, but it was like this for the first sort of 2 or 3 that I did it, where they get 4 actors in who will sort of do a rehearsed read-through of 10 minutes of anything you want. It could be a self-contained piece, it could be a longer piece. You go in, you get a 1-hour rehearsal slot with them in the day, and then in the evening they perform it as part of like a larger evening with all the playwrights. And I thought that was really cool. But I'd only just joined the group, so I was like, there's just no way I can do this yet. I'm just far too new. But then they told me that the deadline for submission for them was in like 3 days, and the group had been working on these for a little while, because I'd sort of joined at like a midterm point, and they don't get too many sort of midterm people who join in, so I joined it right at the sort of spearhead of it. And that night, because I enjoyed the evening so much, I went straight home. I went straight onto my laptop, and I wrote the first thing I could think about, and it got performed. And whilst I'm quite happy with the initial concept, because it was like a virtual reality kind of world piece and a commentary about technology, which is something I clearly talk about a lot, because I did the project The Daily Internet Stood Still for Screen South, which talks about our use of the internet, and then the Once Said audio dramas about sending people to space and the ethics of that. So it's maybe I like exploring technology and the future. But yeah, that was my first ever play, and it was about 10 minutes. I hit the timings really well, actually, considering it was my first time. And I submitted the script, and I waited for the day, and then I was super nervous because I went in and met these 4 actors. There were 4 very professional, well-trained actors. There was a director there as well who we could work with, so we were sort of co-directors on this then, so people who were sort of new to directing could get a little bit of help on guiding the actors to achieve the performance, because obviously the actors were doing like 15 different scripts in one day, so massive props to the actors that I worked with over the 3 years that I submitted something for that first Write Showcase, because it was just so cool every year seeing something different on the stage, and bringing friends and family along. My life's changed quite a lot, obviously, over the past couple of years, so whenever I'm meeting new people, being able to bring them along and having like this really nice showcase once a year where I can just have a great day out with my friends, show them something I made. I was really happy with the thing I made for the third First Write Showcase, because it was a comedy piece, and I don't usually do comedy, so this was very risky for me, because my writing tends to be a little bit more serious in tone. And so I wrote this comedy piece based off like a story my friend had told me. I already had another 10-minute script lined up, but when he told me this story, I thought this is far too funny not to turn into a script. And so just from the story that I was told, I converted that into a script, and that became my showcase, and people loved it. I think that's the best one I did, and I could see a clear progression across the 3 years that I did it as well. It was like a good reflector. But it just showed me that it's quite important to be very much like a sponge when you're in the theatre world, or sort of any writing medium, where you just take in everything. And when you do that, something will stick, an idea, a concept, and that's just what you want to write about. It just keeps you out of a block. You'll never experience a writer's block again if you've got that. And I just thoroughly enjoyed writing for those first write showcases. About September of 2018 and 2019, I had a flash fiction piece of theatre put on, and this was by Bashir Productions, which is a London theatre company. They were looking for sort of anything between 30 seconds and 10 minutes, I think, short theatre pieces, and they were putting on loads of them throughout an evening. These weren't rehearse read; these were actual full performed pieces, and I submitted a really short bit of fiction because sort of in and around summer of 2018 especially, I really was pushing my playwriting, and I was submitting for everything I could. And that was my first little taste. I'm going to get later on in this story into my my first full theatre piece, a 60-minute play I had put on. But if we bring it back to sort of summer of 2018, I would just submit it for everything, and that would be my biggest advice as a playwright, which is once you've got the confidence in what you're writing about and you've absorbed all you want to take in and you've written about it, just every time there's a chance, there's no reason you shouldn't just click go and apply for it, because it could lead to the next big thing for you. And I say that because I have had so many cool opportunities come up through the playwriting, and some have continued to move on to other bigger things, and others just, they were just nice bits of fun. And you've got to keep forcing. You make your own luck, really, with how much you end up doing, and people get to know you in the circles. But yeah, I submitted this for this like flash fiction thing in London, and I think it was September or October 2018. I went up to see it, and it was just so surreal, because that was the first time I'd seen my own work performed by what was effectively strangers, because you sort of sent the script in and they did all the rest. You were just like, you would send in the script and that was it. Your part was done, which I didn't mind, because at that point I was doing a lot of other commissioned film work where there's a lot of legwork to it. So the idea of just like writing something and then handing it off was actually quite nice. And it was just a really short, fun little script. Flash fiction implies what it is. It was only about a minute or so, maybe 2 minutes long, and it was just all built around one single twist, which was really fun to write. I think in and around the time I wrote it, I saw like an ad in a newspaper which was like, you should be writing a short story a day for a month. Do it as a challenge. Go do. And I was very intrigued by that, and so I did. I wrote like one short story every day for a whole month, and I realized how difficult it was. What I realized in that is that I needed to consume more art, because I feel like I ran out of ideas by like day 4, day 5. Sort of things that I, without like repeating things from like the first day. And at that point I was like, I need to start watching more films, I need to start reading more books, because I just didn't have the same, drive that those first couple ideas had. So what I did is I wrote one every day, and then when this competition came up, I submitted 2 or 3 of them, and then two or three of my favourites, and then one of them got through. It was great, and there's no shame in just keeping on writing. As a writer, just keep going. It's why I like making these audio dramas, and I've definitely got more coming down the pipeline, which will be appearing on the My Generation podcast. May have even been announced. Check the social media at the My Generation podcast on Facebook, because if we've got a new audio drama coming out, that'll be the first place you see it. I also like that with the audio dramas now, because I've got the podcast set up, I can sort of make these off my own back. Like Once Said just happens because I made it happen, and there's something so fun about that. And then the theatre side of it was a bit different, where, I sort of handed off that script. But then as my time at the Marlow Playwright group sort of started to wind down to a close, and actually thinking about it, I said I joined when I was 18. I think I may have been younger. I think you were allowed to join from 16. I think I may have been just turned 17 when I joined it. But as my time was winding down with the Marlow, I just started university, so I needed to dedicate a bit more time to my studies. Basically January is quite a quiet month for university, and I had the opportunity to work for the month of January on a play for the Marlowe Youth Company, and that was incredible. It was like a proper project. It was with the youth company, but it had a full team behind it, and a director, set design, effects. It had marketing behind it as well. So it was like a 3-night show. Loads of people came along. I went for all 3 shows. I just couldn't get enough of it. And that was such an incredibly fun thing to write. And I got that opportunity because they knew me from the playwriting group. And so if I hadn't have been going to that group, then I wouldn't have had the opportunity. Someone else in the playwriting group also got through to something called Raw, which is available to everyone in Kent to write a play or a plan for a play, and then you could get commissioned to actually make that play. I've submitted 3 times with no success on that so far, but a couple of the people I know have actually got through and successful on that. But not every competition or thing you enter, will be successful. But because you keep going and you keep submitting, the next thing will potentially land. And it's about sort of linking you up with the right people. So that play with the Marlowe Youth Company, what we ended up writing, I don't think would have been, the same play any other theatre company. And they're looking for a certain type of writer to write a certain type of play, and they find the people that fit their system and what they want to write, but then still giving you enough creativity to go away and have your own creative process. It was really fun to sort of spend a couple of days writing, then take what I have to them, show it, get feedback on it, have a meeting, go home, keep writing, and it was just the whole month really. But because I was just the playwright and I wasn't the director, once the script phase was done, I think I sat in on a couple rehearsals, but that was it for me. I'd done my bit. And that was arguably one of the scariest feelings of my entire life. Handing over a 60-minute play to a director who I trust very much, but handing it over and going, right, go make it. It's mental. Absolutely crazy to me that happened. But it did. And I think it went really well. I mean, in terms of the performance, I think the second night was the best because the first one you're sort of getting into it, and then the second one's like at the height of it once all the adrenaline's there and it's all going and it's all working. But sat in the crowd, I was just in awe of what had been achieved. Theatre's a very different medium because the actors tend to get. And I mean, I'm a part of a drama society. I can vouch for this. So I have also done the acting side of this. So I appeared in a play called The Downfall of Being Human in February this year. I should have pictures on my personal social media about that. But theatre's a different medium because the actors get a lot more room to play with the script. It's a lot more malleable. Lines may not stay. Bits may be removed and workshopped and changed just based on what the actors feel flow. It's not the same with film because with film everything's sort of planned a little bit more. Theatre's a more spontaneous medium, and so I knew that when I handed over the script. So I was thinking, when I see this on the first night, I could be seeing something completely different to what I wrote. And the biggest challenge was they wanted to cover a lot of different scenes, a lot of different eras. So the actual play, I think, had like 52 scenes, like individual scenes, and it was 1 hour. And I was just fascinated to see how it was all going to come together in this 1 hour. But yet it still felt cohesive. And that was amazing to me. It all came together. I was so happy with it. It's just incredible. I loved it. I loved spending time with everyone, just watching my work, people coming along to celebrate with me. Nothing has, truly been so great as that moment was at the start of 2019 when that play went on. It was just so great. And obviously with the follow-up work of radio and my film work, there's been so much great stuff happening there. But there was something really interesting with theatre about being sat in the audience watching something that you made come to life in front of you, because theatre's a live medium, so it's being built, the script's being rebuilt again in front of you every night. And every night was slightly different because there might be a quirk or a technical thing or someone's in the wrong order, so you have to adapt. And you just keep going, and it formed some really nice new moments. The stage design was also crazy. I'd been told when I was writing the script to not sort of worry about how it would look, just to focus on the dialogue, focus on the characters, and they already had a very clear idea of what they wanted for the set design from the director. So it was really interesting for me to then watch it with it being a completely different idea as to what I thought it would be in my head, but yet it all still worked. It wasn't what I was expecting, but in the best way. It was every scene was a surprise. Theatre, to me, is something I never expected to love. It came into my life at an interesting point where I didn't really know where my writing side was going to take me, but I've never felt sort of passion like it. When I first joined the group, I spent 2 days a week, the 2 days I had off, doing nothing but going to coffee shops and writing plays. My output rate was when I was writing these plays all the time, was prolific. On my computer, I have at least sort of 8 polished full-length plays. Some I definitely plan to do things with. Some were just learning experiences. Some are ones I want to adapt to things. There are ideas from some of those plays which made it into Once Said and will make it into future pieces of my work. Those pieces aren't being left in the dust, and without that time, I would not be in the position I'm in now. So I would recommend you just to keep writing, keep being prolific. Some of my favourite musicians are the really prolific ones who don't, maybe they don't release all their music, but they've got, say, hundreds of unreleased songs. One of my favourite artists, Alex G, he's got more unreleased music than he has released music. It's just so prolific, and that's not like a less is more kind of problem, because I think you learn from every time you make a new thing, and the talent comes through, and you learn from every last song you made. And I think it's the same sort of truth with theatre, and with any sort of writing medium. So I've made Once Said, I've learned from it, because there are things I want to take forward from Once Said, some things I'm really proud of. There's also some things that I would change. I'm going to be doing sort of a full personal episode on a Sunday night of the podcast talking about Once Said, what it was like to make it, because I've had some really great chats with people about sort of what it was like from the acting perspective, who else we got involved in the project. But I just wanted to do one sit down episode like this on a Sunday night with you here on the My Generation podcast. Once again, I'd just like to say I hope you really enjoy this style of episode as well. Every Thursday on the show we have guests. Every Sunday it's just me and you talking about whatever. If you've got ideas of things you would like me to just talk about on my own, do leave them in the comments, because it'd be really fun to mix up the topics, seeing what else we can talk about on the Sunday evening edition of the podcast, because the guests we have on the show are so fascinating. They're really, really great people. We've got, just to sort of look ahead as to some of the other stuff we've got coming up, we've got a double whammy of Alex's. We've got Alex Durham, who's a freelance filmmaker, and Alex Merritt, who's going to be talking about some of his favourite films. And we've got Dan Feekins. He's going to be on the show talking about film, but from a different angle. He's talking about sort of hidden gems. So we've got 3 very filmy guests coming up, which is really exciting, and a couple of musicians to feature on the show as well. And Sammy, obviously, every Thursday does his music review as well. So if you need a new album to listen to, the Thursday episode is your place to go, because every Thursday Sammy has a brand new album recommendation on the My Generation podcast. He's been doing that every week since the tail end of March, I think. So he's been absolutely just smashing it. So much new music to listen to. Great to have him on the show. And Connor Jenkins, don't forget I'll be speaking to him again. We talked about last time we had him on for I believe the 48th episode of the podcast. Talking about his modelling, which he does as a full-time career. And we're going to be playing Dungeons & Dragons live on the podcast. Well, not live. We're going to be playing Dungeons & Dragons whilst recording an episode, and he's going to be leading a game. I don't really know how to play, so I'm going to be learning as I go. Should be really good fun. Can't wait to release that episode. It's going to be a very different one. But bringing it back to playwriting, just actually mentioning that obviously Connor does his modelling as like a full-time career thing. Making money in the theatre sphere is a very interesting one, and it's possible. A lot of the people I know that do sort of playwriting stuff tend to sort of balance other strings to their bow as well. So for me, I do theatre, radio, film. I actually help with my parents' software stuff as well. I work in loads of different areas. I basically do a little bit of everything for the way I'm able to support myself. And all of these mediums, when you're in a creative field and you're sort of in a freelance role, it snowballs. So at first it may seem like it's going slow, but when you start getting more and more work and people realise they can trust your work, it really, really goes and goes. Like once one person knows you can do it, they'll pass that information on to the next person. And maybe that person will have some repeat work, so it might not be frequent, but maybe you can come back every couple of months and do a bit of work for them. Maybe the theatre company in London needs a new sort of flash fiction play once a month, and you're the guy or girl to do that. It can be anything. And I just think it's really cool that sort of in this modern world, what you can do with a freelance career where something about juggling multiple different joys that shouldn't be feared necessarily. I was a bit scared of it when I first started, trying to figure out where my life was going to take me, what career path would be the one. But I've relaxed into it. I really enjoy it. And it means that my life is really varied at the minute, because I could be, out filming something in Folkestone, then I'm over working in the radio station, and then I'm here at the at Canterbury Christchurch University recording a podcast. Every day is just completely different, and I love that. And the same with theatre stuff. If you've been commissioned to write a play, that's amazing. Go have time to experiment making it, research things. The researching process is really fun. For the 60-minute play, I spent quite a lot of time doing research because I had to get some voices right for certain eras, and that was fascinating to me. There'll be things that you discover about yourself, but also you will learn new stories. You take in so much when you're making theatre. Stories from the actors, stories about the world that you're building. It makes you such a more rounded person because you're taking in so much cool stuff. You have more stories to tell. Like I couldn't tell this story today if I hadn't sort of embarked on my journey into theatre. It's great fun. I would really recommend it. If theatre is something that you want to do, the Marlowe Theatre in Canterbury is a great place to start and keep going with. Their theatre writing group's really, really great, really supportive. You'll be able to listen to other people's work and see what other styles are out there, but also get feedback on your own. There's loads of little theatre groups all over the county. And if you don't live in Kent, there's going to be theatre groups all over where you live. I mean, I'm a part of the theatre group at my university. If you're a university student, there'll definitely be one at yours. So do get involved. Thank you all very much for listening to this Sunday's episode of the My Generation podcast. I keep forgetting we are now a bi-weekly show. This is very new to me. Very excited to speak with you again on a Sunday evening episode on the podcast. Obviously, I've made you aware of what is coming up on the next few weeks on the main Thursday evening show. That's your mainline show, which features music, which features Sammy, which features a guest every Thursday on the My Generation podcast. And then these episodes on a Sunday are a little bit shorter, and just me and you talking about whatever. Again, go to the comments below where you can recommend some topics for these Sunday editions, or any of the topics which I'll be talking about on Thursdays. Please do get in touch. We'll have interaction on the show. I've had some great interaction over the past year, because we're now over a year of My Generation podcast content, which is just incredible to me. Just incredible. I've sort of done the math of it, and because of this new bi-weekly show thing we're doing, we're going to hit 100 episodes as of the end of 2020, which is just crazy to me. We only started it in June 2019, and look how far we've come. So, yeah, thanks again so much for listening. There's a bit of a ramble at the end. But we will tune in with you for Thursday's episode of the My Generation podcast, which features guests, Sammy, and music. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll tune in with you Thursday for the next episode of the My Generation podcast.